After reviewing RRR last week, I got numerous recommendations to check out a movie series called K.G.F. I watched Chapter 1. Chapter 2 came out on Amazon Prime today, so we're going to talk about it right now. What is up, flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. We are talking every single movie on this channel in theaters and on streaming, and since K.G.F. Chapter 2 dropped on streaming, we are going to get into it. I'll tell you a little bit of my thoughts on Chapter 1 at the beginning and then dive in, so I need you guys in the comments down below and let me know what movie should I watch next. There's a film called Vikram in theaters. I think I may watch that. So in the blood-soaked gold fields, Rocky's name strikes fear into his foes, while his allies look up to him. The government sees him as a threat to law and order. Rocky must battle threats from all sides for unchallenged supremacy. So Chapter 1 was my introduction to Yash as a movie star on the big screen, even though I watched it on streaming. But to see his portrayal of Rocky and the unflinching badassery of this character is something I've never really seen anything quite like it. But it doesn't start out that way. We see where he comes from. The first film accompanied by numerous flashbacks and seeing the transition from what he was to what he is now. And all of that going up to another level in Chapter 2. I enjoyed the ride. I thought some of the action scenes were really fun. I did have some issues with the first film, and I was hoping Chapter 2 could not only fix a few of those issues, but bring it all home. And that's what I was looking forward to. So going into K.G.F. Chapter 2, I was excited to see what they were going to do with this character. The film starts, it gives us a bit of a recap as to how the last movie ended and the death of the opposition. But the question is posed, what happened to K.G.F. after his death? And how does Rocky factor into this story? Well, very heavily. He's essentially on a path to become an emperor, a godlike figure for these people that he has led to this point. And the first time we see him in this movie with the accompanying text on screen, rocking star Yash, and you feel his presence, brought about by not only the striking visuals, but the score underneath it. That was probably my biggest compliment to the first film. Every time that score kicks in and that scream in the background, whenever Rocky is on screen, I'm like, this is pretty epic. Very similar feeling with something like RRR. It is over the top, but a lot of people are going to look at it as too far over the top. I just find it to be so fascinating, the way that cinema in this part of the world goes about things just a bit differently, but at the end of the day, it is able to kind of broaden my horizons, and even if not everything falls together when watching a movie like this, it's so fascinating to see the techniques used. A couple that, transition from the first film to the second, the slow motion, the way that they go about the action scenes, which again are epic, maybe a bit fewer and farther in between. And my biggest criticism with the action scene in this film specifically, we see kind of the same thing over and over with Rocky. Within like a 20-minute span in this film, there are multiple scenes where he's being shot at, not flinching, continues to walk towards the person shooting at him, is not afraid of anything. And you start to think back to what is said about Rocky as this character and the fact that so many look up to him. You see why, because there is nothing about his character anytime he is on screen that's making me sit back and go, no, he's not going to make it through this situation, because you always believe that he can. And there's something endearing and compelling about that quality of a main character, even though he is a bit standoffish. And I wasn't as emotionally attached to Rocky as maybe I should have been after a brilliant use of flashbacks and getting us to know his character. But once he reaches this peak of feeling unstoppable, there are some elements to his character. Yes, everything he's doing on screen is epic in the best way, but it's also so standoffish, and you're struggling getting that attachment to him because you never get to know him as intimately in this film as maybe I wanted and needed. There is an emotional distance between you and the main character, and that is tenfold in this movie, because in this film, he is at the top of his game, and everyone around him is trying to take him down. You also have the other storyline of those telling this story and learning of what happened with the character of Rocky. But he is not our only character. Obviously, you have actors and performers like Srinidhi Shetty and a nice supporting cast. I didn't really have a huge issue with any of the performances here. There are one or two characters that become a bit overbearing at points, but for the most part, I thoroughly enjoyed this cast from top to bottom, and I thought everyone played their part beautifully. And the direction, even though, like I said, certain action beats were a bit repetitive and the use of slow motion and elements did occasionally feel like a lot, but it is brutal to watch. And I'm talking, you feel every punch or slice, whatever weapon is being used, and even the gunshots. Now, they continue to use the technique of cutting to black after something epic like that would happen, but it didn't feel as jarring this time around, and because I was maybe more invested in that grand aspect of the story, anytime it would do something like that, it almost added to it instead of taking away, which maybe I felt was the case in the first film. So they really stepped a couple of elements up in this movie. And again, being such a big film, so long, a lot of story to tell. And I actually felt like they wrapped up one story and then continued into another. And even though there are a lot of people out to get Rocky, our main villainous presence, Adhira, just hearing his name, the people are weeping. They are terrified of this figure because we have built Rocky up and we know that this may be the only thing to stop him. And we get a fake scenario where he is returning to reclaim his K.G.F. and it puts the fear in you as a viewer, and it shows you that even though Rocky at all times is at the top of his game, it's not all roses and dandelions. Is that the saying? It's not all chocolate and roses? Roses and coffee? Fun and games? We'll say that. There's a line in the movie that kind of resonated with me, though. Someone says, "Don't dramatize it too much. After all, it's fiction, right?" And I'm thinking to myself, yes, that is the case. So in a way, a lot of these overly stylized elements, they kind of play into the story being told, and that makes me appreciate it even more so. And I understand a lot of people are going to say, well, this maybe isn't supposed to resonate to you because very different audience, but I feel like these types of movies, they're just so vastly different than what I'm used to. They're doing something for me that's making me appreciate worldwide cinema even more so. And I'm really enjoying this experience. That's why I kind of want to get my feet wet and continue to watch these films. So before I give you guys my score, be sure to leave your thoughts down below. And if you want to come back, like I said, I'm going to be watching more of these. Keep leaving those recommendations. Without you all, I never would have watched the first film or this second one. My score for this, though, is a 70%. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's so distinctly different, but I do feel as if Chapter 1 led right into Chapter 2 that capitalized on a lot of things that they set up, because that first film was definitely, a big part of it was setting up this second movie, and it was epic. It was grand. The cinematography worked for the most part, and I enjoyed it. So let me know your thoughts. Appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned. More reviews to come.